The champagne flutes clinked around me like a chorus of tiny bells, each sound a reminder that I didn't belong here. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured rainbows across the marble floors of the Sinclair estate, and I stood in the corner of the grand ballroom, balancing a silver tray that weighed more than my entire paycheck. My feet ached in the too tight shoes the catering company had provided, and the black dress they'd given me was a size too small, cutting into my ribs with every breath. I was invisible here. That's what I told myself as I weaved through clusters of people who wore more money on their wrists than I'd see in a year. The air smelled of expensive perfume, aged scotch, and something else, power maybe. The kind that made the hairs on my neck stand up. More champagne. A woman with diamonds dripping from her ears snapped her fingers at me without even looking at my face. "Of course, ma'am." I forced a smile and refilled her glass, my hand steady despite the exhaustion pulling at my bones. I'd been on my feet for 6 hours, and the night was far from over. This was my third catering gig this week. Between my day job at the diner and these evening events, I barely slept. But rent didn't pay itself, and my mother's medical bills kept piling up like autumn leaves. So I smiled, I served, and I disappeared into the background. Then I felt it, a shift in the air, like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees. The conversations around me didn't stop exactly, but they changed, became quieter, more careful. I glanced toward the main entrance and saw them. 3 men in perfectly tailored black suits, moving through the crowd like sharks through water. People parted for them without being asked. But it was the man in the center who made my breath catch. He was tall enough that I had to tilt my head back to see his face properly. Dark hair, styled with a kind of casual precision that screamed money. His suit was black, expensive enough that I could tell from across the room, and it fit him like it had been sewn onto his body. But it wasn't the clothes that made my stomach twist. It was the way he moved, predatory, controlled, like he owned every inch of space he occupied, and the way everyone watched him, with fear barely disguised as respect. I looked away quickly, focusing on my tray. This wasn't my business. These weren't my people. I just needed to get through the next 2 hours, collect my pay, and go home. "Careful," another server whispered as she passed me. "That's Dante Moretti." The name meant nothing to me, but the warning in her voice did. I kept my head down, moving along the perimeter of the room, refilling glasses and collecting empty plates, but I could feel eyes on me, his eyes maybe, though I told myself I was being paranoid. Why would someone like that even notice someone like me? I was backing away from a group of laughing guests when it happened. My heel caught on the edge of an ornate rug. I stumbled, and the tray tilted. Time slowed as I watched a full glass of red wine arc through the air, tumbling end over end in a perfect spiral. It landed with a splash that seemed to echo in the sudden silence. All over the front of an impeccably white suit jacket. My heart stopped. I looked up, and up, and up, until I met eyes so dark they looked black in the chandelier light. Cold, assessing, dangerous. Dante Moretti stared down at me, red wine dripping from the lapel of what was probably a $5,000 suit. His expression didn't change, didn't flicker with anger or surprise. Just nothing. Which was somehow worse. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, grabbing napkins from my tray with shaking hands. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see. I wasn't looking." I reached toward him to blot the wine, and one of his companions, a man built like a brick wall, moved forward like he was going to intercept me. But Dante raised one hand, barely a gesture, and the man stopped instantly. "It's fine," Dante said, his voice low and smooth, with an edge that made my skin prickle. "No, it's not. I was babbling now, my face burning with humiliation. Everyone was watching. Everyone. "I'll pay for the cleaning. You'll what?" His eyebrow arched slightly. "Do you have any idea what this suit costs?" The question wasn't cruel exactly, just factual, which made it worse. "I'll work it off," I said desperately. Whatever it takes. I'm so sorry." He studied me for a long moment, and I felt like an insect under a microscope. Then his lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You work for Sinclair Catering?" "Yes, tonight." I mean, I'm contracted for tonight. I was still holding the napkins uselessly. Please, I need this job. I can't afford to lose it. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Interest? Amusement? I couldn't tell. What's your name? Emma. Emma Chen. The words tumbled out before I could think better of giving this man any information about myself. Well, he plucked the napkins from my trembling fingers and handed them to the brick wall man. You're right. You can't afford to lose your job, but you also can't afford to replace my suit. My chest tightened. This was it. He was going to have me fired, maybe even sue me. My mother's face flashed through my mind, pale, weak, hooked up to machines I was already struggling to pay for. However, he continued, and I held my breath. Accidents happen. I blinked. What? You heard me. He adjusted his cufflinks. Platinum, I noticed stupidly, and the wine-stained jacket didn't seem to bother him at all. Consider yourself fortunate that I'm in a generous mood tonight. Relief flooded through me so fast I felt dizzy. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really didn't mean, but perhaps. He interrupted, his voice dropping lower. You should watch where you're going. These events aren't playgrounds for clumsy little girls. The condescension in his tone hit me like cold water. Clumsy little girls. I'd spent the entire night being invisible, being dismissed, being treated like furniture by people who wouldn't last a day doing what I did. And this man, this stranger in his expensive suit, was looking at me like I was a child playing dress-up. Something in me snapped. I'm not clumsy, I said, my voice sharper than I'd intended. I've been on my feet for 6 hours serving people who don't even see me as human. Maybe if you and your friends didn't take up half the walkway, I wouldn't have had to navigate around you. The silence that fell was absolute. The brick wall man's hand moved inside his jacket. Another of Dante's companions stepped closer. But Dante himself, he just stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. Excuse me? His voice was dangerously soft. I should have stopped. Should have apologized again, backed down, remembered my place. But exhaustion and frustration and 3 years of being invisible had built up inside me like steam in a kettle. You're acting like I ruined your life over a wine stain, I continued, my hands clenched into fists. It's just a suit. You probably have 50 more at home. Meanwhile, I'm going to have to skip meals this week to make sure I don't lose this job because some spoiled... I caught myself, but too late. Some spoiled what? Dante took a step closer, and suddenly the room felt smaller. He smelled like sandalwood and something darker, dangerous. Please, finish your thought. My survival instincts were screaming at me to shut up, to run, to do anything but keep talking. But my mouth had disconnected from my brain. Some spoiled rich guy who's probably never worked a real day in his life is looking down on me like I'm nothing. The words hung in the air between us. One of his men muttered something in Italian that sounded like a prayer or a curse. But Dante's expression didn't change. He just studied me with those bottomless dark eyes, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Then he smiled. It was a terrible smile, all teeth and no warmth. Spoiled, he repeated, tasting the word. That's refreshing. Most people are more careful with their words around me. Maybe most people don't have anything to lose, I shot back, even though my heart was hammering against my ribs. Oh, Emma Chen. He said my name like he was memorizing it. Everyone has something to lose. Before I could respond, a woman's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Dante, darling. A stunning blonde in a dress that probably cost more than my car glided toward us, her smile wide and predatory. She looped her arm through Dante's without seeming to notice or care about the wine stain. I've been looking everywhere for you, she purred. Then her eyes slid to me with the warmth of a snake. Is there a problem with the help? The way she said help made my teeth clench. No problem, Dante said smoothly, his attention shifting away from me like I'd ceased to exist. Just a minor spill. Nothing that can't be cleaned. Nothing that can't be cleaned, like I was the stain. The blonde laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Well, come along. Senator Morrison wants to speak with you about that property development. As she led him away, Dante glanced back at me one last time. His expression was unreadable, but something in his eyes made my blood run cold. "Be more careful, Miss Chen," he said quietly. "The next person you call spoiled might not be so forgiving." Then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd of expensive suits and designer dresses, leaving me standing alone with my empty tray and racing heart. I should have felt relieved. The encounter was over. I'd kept my job. I'd probably never see him again. But as I picked up the wine-stained napkins from the floor, my hands were shaking for an entirely different reason than before. Because the way Dante Moretti had looked at me in those final seconds wasn't angry. It was interested. And something told me that was infinitely more dangerous. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying the encounter in my mind, cringing at every word I'd said. What had I been thinking, calling a man like that spoiled? A man who had the kind of presence that made rooms go quiet. The catering manager hadn't said anything about the incident, which should have been a relief, but instead, it just made me more anxious. By the time my alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., I'd convinced myself I was being paranoid. It was over. Done. I'd never see Dante Moretti again, and he'd already forgotten about the clumsy waitress who'd ruined his suit. I dragged myself through my morning shift at Rosie's Diner, pouring coffee and serving pancakes to the early crowd. My feet still ached from the night before, and my eyes felt like they'd been rubbed with sandpaper. But I smiled at the regulars, topped off mugs without being asked, and pretended everything was fine. It was almost 2 p.m. when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Probably a spam call about my car's extended warranty, but something made me swipe to accept. "Is this Emma Chen?" A woman's voice, professional and clipped. "Yes? Who's calling?" "This is Rebecca Sterling from Sterling & Associates Law Firm. I'm calling on behalf of our client, Mr. Dante Moretti." My blood turned to ice. What? "Mr. Moretti would like to schedule a meeting with you. Today, if possible. We can send a car to your location at 4 p.m. "A meeting about what?" My voice came out higher than normal. "Look, I already apologized for the suit. I said I'd pay. This isn't about the suit, Miss Chen." Rebecca's tone was perfectly neutral. "Mr. Moretti has a business proposition for you. The details will be discussed in person." "I don't understand. What kind of business would someone like him have with someone like me? That's not information I'm at liberty to share over the phone. Will you accept the meeting?" Every instinct I had screamed at me to say no, to hang up, block the number, pretend this call never happened. But a business proposition from a man who clearly had money, when I was drowning in medical bills and barely making rent. What if I say no? I asked quietly. There was a pause. When Rebecca spoke again, her voice was softer, almost sympathetic. "Then I'm instructed to inform you that Mr. Moretti will be very disappointed, and Mr. Moretti doesn't handle disappointment well." It wasn't a threat. Not exactly. But the implication was clear. I closed my eyes and thought of my mother, hooked up to machines in the extended care facility, of the eviction notice I'd shoved in my drawer yesterday, of the impossible choice between eating and paying bills. "Fine," I said. 4 p.m. "Where?" "The car will pick you up from Rosie's Diner. Be ready." She hung up before I could ask any more questions. I stared at my phone, my reflection ghostly in the dark screen. What had I just agreed to? The car that arrived at exactly 4 p.m. was not what I expected. It was a black Mercedes, sleek and menacing, with windows so dark I couldn't see inside. The kind of vehicle that cost more than most people's houses. A driver in a crisp black suit stepped out and opened the rear door without a word, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses despite the overcast sky. I hesitated on the sidewalk, my worn purse clutched against my chest like a shield. "Miss Chen?" His voice was polite but firm. "Mr. Moretti is waiting." The mention of that name made my decision for me. I climbed into the back seat, and the door closed behind me with a heavy final thunk that reminded me of a vault ceiling shut. The interior smelled like leather and something expensive. Cologne, maybe. The seats were impossibly soft, and there was a privacy screen between me and the driver. As we pulled away from the diner, I watched the familiar streets of my neighborhood disappear through the tinted windows, replaced by increasingly upscale buildings. We drove for 20 minutes, heading toward the financial district where glass towers pierced the sky like shards of ice. Finally, we pulled into an underground parking garage beneath one of the tallest buildings, past security gates that required keycards and facial recognition. The driver opened my door, and I stepped out onto polished concrete that gleamed under fluorescent lights. He gestured toward a private elevator with brass doors. "Penthouse level," he said. "You're expected." The elevator ride was silent except for the soft classical music playing from hidden speakers. I watched the numbers climb, 10, 20, 30, 40, until they stopped at PH. The doors slid open with a whisper. I stepped into a foyer that looked like something from an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city, the late afternoon sun painting everything gold. The floors were dark hardwood, the furniture minimal and expensive. Modern art hung on the walls, originals, I was sure, not prints. And standing by the windows, hands in his pockets, was Dante Moretti. He'd changed from last night's wine-stained suit into charcoal gray, equally expensive. His dark hair was slightly tousled, like he'd run his hands through it recently. When he turned to face me, those black eyes found mine immediately. "Emma Chen." He said it like a statement, not a question. "Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. One corner of his mouth lifted. "There's always a choice. You made yours." I stayed near the elevator, my fingers finding the strap of my purse. "Your lawyer said you had a business proposition. What could you possibly want from me?" "Direct. I appreciate that." He moved away from the windows, each step deliberate and measured. "Can I offer you something to drink? Water? Wine?" His eyes glinted with dark humor. "I promise not to wear it this time." "I'm fine. I'd just like to know why I'm here." He studied me for a long moment, then gestured to a sleek leather couch. "Sit, please." It wasn't really a request. I perched on the edge of the couch, my back straight, ready to bolt if necessary. Dante sat in the chair across from me, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, the shadow of stubble along his jaw. "Let me tell you a story," he began, his voice low and smooth. "About a man who built an empire from nothing, who clawed his way up from the streets, who made deals with devils to protect what was his. This man has enemies, powerful ones, enemies who would love nothing more than to see him fall." I swallowed hard. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because context matters, Emma. This man needs something that money can't buy. He needs legitimacy, respectability, the kind that comes from the right connections, the right appearances." His eyes never left mine. "He needs a wife." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A short, disbelieving sound. "You're not serious." "I'm always serious." "Then you're insane." I started to stand. "I'm leaving." "Sit down." His voice didn't rise, but the command in it made me freeze. "I haven't finished. I don't need to hear more. I don't know what kind of joke this is." "Your mother is at St. Catherine's Extended Care Facility," he interrupted, and my blood turned to ice. "Stage 4 lung cancer. The treatment is experimental, not covered by insurance. Your bills are currently at $237,000 and climbing. You work 3 jobs, the diner, catering, and weekend shifts at a convenience store. Your rent is 2 months overdue. You have $17 in your checking account." Horror crawled up my spine. "How do you—" "I make it my business to know things." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and the movement brought him closer. Too close. Especially when someone interesting crosses my path. "Interesting?" I choked out. "I spilled wine on you and called you spoiled." "That's not interesting, that's just stupid." "It's honest. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Everyone wants something, everyone has an angle. But you—" he tilted his head, studying me like I was a painting in a museum. "You looked at me like I was just another entitled, rich asshole. No fear, no calculation, just anger. Is that what this is about? Your ego couldn't handle being called out?" "My ego is perfectly intact." That dangerous smile again. "This is about opportunity, for both of us." I shook my head. trying to process what was happening. You want me to marry you, a complete stranger, because I was rude to you at a party. I want you to marry me because I need a wife who appears genuine, who has a compelling story. The daughter of immigrants, working herself to death to save her mother. It's perfect. The press will eat it up. My associates will see it as me settling down, becoming more stable. And what do I get out of this insanity? Your mother's medical bills, paid in full, the experimental treatment, the best doctors, a private room, everything she needs, a penthouse apartment in the city, a salary of $50,000 a month for the duration of our arrangement, and when we divorce, after a suitable period, a settlement of $5 million. The numbers made my head spin. That kind of money could change everything. My mother could live. I could breathe. I could sleep without nightmares about eviction notices and debt collectors. This is insane, I whispered. This is business. Why me? You could have anyone. Someone from your world, someone who knows how to... That's exactly why not them. He stood, moving to a bar cart and pouring himself 2 fingers of amber liquid. Anyone from my world comes with baggage, expectations, family alliances I don't need. You're clean. Simple. And after last night, I know you won't bore me. I called you a thug last night, I said, the memory surfacing. When you walked away with that blonde, I heard myself say it to another server. He paused, glass halfway to his lips, then laughed. A real laugh, dark and rich. Did you? I didn't hear that part, though it's not inaccurate. So you are. I couldn't say it. Couldn't voice what I suspected. Careful, Emma. He took a sip of his drink. Some things are safer left unspoken. My hands were shaking. I pressed them together in my lap. What would this marriage actually entail? Public appearances, charity events, dinners with my associates. You'd live here, in this penthouse. We'd need to appear convincing, affectionate in public. But your private life would remain your own. Separate bedrooms. No expectations beyond the performance. For how long? 2 years. Long enough to serve its purpose. Then we part ways amicably. You get your money, your mother gets her treatment, and we both move on with our lives. I looked around the penthouse, at the art worth more than my life, the view that made me feel like I was floating above the city, the man who held my future in his hands like it was nothing. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. After that, the offer expires, and you go back to your $17 and drowning in debt. He set down his glass with a soft click. The car will take you home. Think carefully, Emma. Opportunities like this don't come twice. I stood on shaking legs and walked toward the elevator. When the doors opened, I stepped inside and turned back. Dante was watching me, silhouetted against the windows, looking like a king surveying his kingdom. What if I say no? I asked. His expression didn't change. Then I'll be disappointed. And like I said, I don't handle disappointment well. The doors closed, and I was alone with my reflection and the impossible choice before me. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I had the driver drop me at St. Catherine's. I needed to see her, needed to ground myself in reality before I made a decision that would change everything. My mother was asleep when I entered her room. The machines beeped softly, monitoring her vitals. She looked so small in the hospital bed, her skin paper thin, her breathing shallow. The cancer was winning. We both knew it. The experimental treatment was a long shot, but it was the only shot we had, and I couldn't afford it. I sat in the chair beside her bed and took her hand. It was cool and fragile, like bird bones. "Hey, Mom," I whispered. Her eyes fluttered open, and she smiled. That same warm smile she'd given me my whole life, even when things were falling apart. Even when Dad left. Even when the bills piled up. Even now, dying. "Emma, sweetheart, you didn't have to come. You should be resting. I wanted to see you." She squeezed my hand with what little strength she had. "You look troubled." "What's wrong?" "Everything," I wanted to say. A dangerous man just offered me millions of dollars to be his wife. I spilled wine on a mafia boss, and now my life is spiraling out of control. I'm terrified and tempted, and I don't know what to do. "Just tired," I said instead. Work was busy. You work too hard, baby. You need to take care of yourself. I'm fine, Mom. I wish I could do more for you. Her eyes glistened. You do everything. You always have. I'm so proud of you, Emma. So proud. The words broke something in me. I laid my head on the edge of her bed, still holding her hand, and let the tears come silently. She stroked my hair with her free hand, humming the lullaby she used to sing when I was small, the same one her mother had sung to her in Mandarin, passed down through generations. Whatever you're facing, she murmured, you're stronger than you know. You have steel in your spine, just like your grandmother. You'll make the right choice. But what was the right choice? Take Dante's offer and save my mother's life, but sell myself into a contract with a dangerous man, or refuse and watch her die, knowing I could have saved her. I stayed until the nurses did their evening rounds, then kissed my mother's forehead and promised to come back tomorrow. The night air was cold against my face as I walked the 6 blocks to my apartment. I couldn't afford another cab, and the bus didn't run this late. The streets were mostly empty, just a few homeless people huddled in doorways, and the occasional car passing by. I climbed the 3 flights to my studio apartment and unlocked the door. The space was tiny, barely room for a bed, a kitchenette, and a small bathroom. But it was mine. Or it had been, before I fell behind on rent. I collapsed on my bed without changing clothes and stared at the water-stained ceiling. $50,000 a month, $5 million settlement. My mother's treatment paid in full. 2 years of my life, playing pretend with a man who terrified me. I picked up my phone and Googled Dante Moretti. The results made my stomach drop. CEO of Moretti Enterprises, real estate mogul. Alleged ties to organized crime. Under investigation for money laundering. Suspected head of the Moretti crime family. There were photos. Dante at charity galas, cutting ribbons at building openings, shaking hands with politicians. Always surrounded by large men in suits. Always with that same controlled expression. And photos of him with women, beautiful women, draped on his arm like accessories. The blonde from last night appeared in several, identified as socialite Victoria Sterling. I was so far out of my depth I couldn't even see the surface. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I already knew who it was. The text was simple. 9 a.m. Don't be late. D. I threw my phone on the bed and pressed my palms against my eyes. Steel in your spine, my mother had said. I had until morning to decide if that steel was strong enough to survive Dante Moretti. I didn't sleep. At 8:45 a.m., I stood outside the gleaming tower that housed Moretti Enterprises, wearing my only decent dress, a simple navy sheath I'd bought for job interviews years ago. My hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and I'd covered the dark circles under my eyes with drugstore concealer. I looked like I was going to my own execution. The same driver from yesterday was waiting by the black Mercedes. He opened the door without a word, and I slid inside. This time, I noticed details I'd missed before. The car was armored. I could tell from the weight of the door, the thickness of the glass. There was a gun in a holster under the driver's seat. We were followed by another black SUV, visible in the side mirror. This wasn't just wealth. This was protection, power, danger. We parked in the same underground garage, but this time the driver escorted me to a different elevator. This one required a key card and a fingerprint scan. The doors were solid steel. 40th floor, he said. Mr. Moretti's private office. The elevator rose smoothly, and my stomach churned with each passing floor. When the doors opened, I stepped into a reception area with a stunning view and a desk where a severe-looking woman in her 50s sat like a guard dog. Miss Chen, she said without looking up, Mr. Moretti is expecting you, through those doors. I walked across the marble floor, my heels clicking too loudly, and pushed open the heavy wooden doors. Dante's office was massive, all dark wood and leather, with windows that showcased the entire city skyline. He stood behind his desk, talking on the phone in rapid Italian. When he saw me, he held up one finger in a wait gesture and finished his conversation. Si, capisco, fallo. He hung up and pocketed his phone, then looked at me with those dark, assessing eyes. You came. I came. Have you made your decision? I walked to the center of the room, my purse clutched in both hands. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get out while I still could. But I thought of my mother's smile, her weakening hand in mine, the lullaby she'd hummed. I thought of $17 and eviction notices, and a lifetime of struggling. I thought of what my grandmother would have done. Pragmatic, fierce, willing to sacrifice for family. I have conditions, I heard myself say. Dante's eyebrows rose slightly. Do you? Yes. I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze even though my knees were shaking. My mother gets the treatment immediately. I want that in writing before I sign anything. And I want to visit her whenever I need to. No restrictions. Done. I keep working at the diner. I'm not going to just sit around playing housewife. His jaw tightened. Absolutely not. My wife doesn't serve pancakes. Then I guess you don't have a wife. I turned toward the door. Wait. The word cracked like a whip. I stopped but didn't turn around. I heard him move, felt him approach until he was close enough that I could smell that sandalwood scent again. Why is the diner so important? Because it's mine. The only thing in my life that's real, that I chose. If I'm going to sell myself to you for 2 years, I keep that one piece of who I am. Silence. Then, 3 days a week. Morning shifts only. And you quit the other jobs. I turned to face him. We were too close. I could see the tiny scar above his left eyebrow, the exact shade of darkness in his eyes. Fine. Anything else? I want my own bank account. Not joint, not controlled by you. I want my own money. You'll have an allowance. No. I stepped closer, surprising even myself. I won't be dependent on you handing me cash like a child. I want my own account, my salary deposited there, under my control. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect? Surprise? Very well. He pulled his phone out and typed something quickly. My lawyers will have the contracts ready by this afternoon. We'll review them together. Anything else? I should have said no. Should have quit while I was ahead, but my mouth kept moving. What's the real reason you're doing this? And don't tell me it's about legitimacy or business. A man like you doesn't need to get married for that. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned away, moving to the windows, his hands in his pockets. My father built an empire, he said finally, but he built it in blood and shadows. When he died, he left me a choice. Continue his work, or let everything he sacrificed for crumble. I chose to continue, but times are changing. The old ways don't work anymore. If I want to expand, to move into legitimate businesses, I need to appear domesticated, trustworthy. So I'm window dressing. You're a strategic asset. He glanced back at me. And if I'm being honest, I'm curious. About what? About what happens when someone finally tells me no. You're the first person in a very long time who's looked at me like I'm just a man. Not a king. Not a monster. Just a man she finds irritating. And the honesty in his voice surprised me. You are irritating, I said. He smiled. A real smile this time, not the dangerous one. Then we should get along perfectly. Do we have a deal, Emma Chen? I thought of my mother, of the life I could give her, of the future this money could buy. I thought of steel spines and impossible choices. Yes, I whispered. We have a deal. Dante crossed the room in 3 strides and extended his hand. Then welcome to the family, future Mrs. Moretti. I took his hand, and his fingers closed around mine, warm, strong, possessive. And I wondered what I'd just agreed to. What monster I'd just made a bargain with. And why, when he smiled at me, I felt something other than fear flutter in my chest. The contracts arrived at 3 p.m., delivered by 2 lawyers in matching gray suits who spread documents across Dante's conference table like they were laying out battle plans. I sat across from them, trying to read legal jargon that might as well have been written in ancient Greek. This section outlines the financial arrangements, one lawyer explained, pointing to a page dense with numbers. $50,000 per month, deposited on the first of each month into an account solely in your name. The initial deposit of $100,000 will be made today, as a signing bonus. $100,000, more money than I'd ever seen in my life. And here, the second lawyer flipped to another section. The medical provision. All expenses related to your mother's care, including the experimental treatment, specialists, medications, and facility fees, will be covered by Mr. Moretti's private medical fund. No caps, no limits. I looked up at Dante, who sat at the head of the table, watching me with that unreadable expression. "You're really doing this. I honor my agreements," he said simply. "What about after, when we divorce?" "The settlement. $5 million. Paid in full within 30 days of the divorce being finalized. Plus, you keep any assets acquired during the marriage in your name, including the apartment we'll set up for you." My head spun. This was really happening. "There's also this clause," the first lawyer said, his tone careful. "Regarding discretion. You agree not to discuss Mr. Moretti's business affairs with anyone during or after the marriage. Not family, not friends. What you see, what you hear, it stays private. What if I see something illegal?" The room went very quiet. Dante leaned forward, elbows on the table. "You won't. I keep my business and my personal life separate. But if you're asking whether you'll be expected to lie to the police or commit crimes, no. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? Privacy. My world is dangerous, Emma. The less you know, the safer you are. Trust me on that." I didn't trust him. Not even a little bit. But I also didn't have much choice. Fine. What else? We went through page after page. The living arrangements. I'd move into the penthouse within the week. Public appearances. At least 2 per month. More during election seasons or major business events. Social media. I'd need to maintain accounts, post occasionally about our relationship, but a team would help manage it. "And this," the second lawyer said, sliding a separate document toward me. "The prenuptial agreement. In the event of divorce, you waive any claim to Mr. Moretti's existing assets or business holdings. You receive the agreed-upon settlement, nothing more." "I don't want his business," I said. "I just want what we agreed to. Sign here. And here. And here." My hand shook as I picked up the pen. This was it. The moment everything changed, I thought of my mother in that hospital bed. Thought of the eviction notice. Thought of drowning in debt for the rest of my life. I signed. Dante signed after me, his signature a bold slash across the page. Then he stood and extended his hand again. "Congratulations, fiancé. When's the wedding?" I asked, my voice hollow. 2 weeks. Small ceremony, immediate family only. Then a larger reception for business associates. 2 weeks? I can't plan a wedding in 2 weeks. You won't have to. I have people for that. He checked his watch. Speaking of which, they'll be here in an hour. What people? Wedding planner, personal shopper, hair and makeup consultant. You'll need a full wardrobe. My wife can't be seen in— He gestured vaguely at my navy dress. Heat flooded my cheeks. There's nothing wrong with my clothes. There's nothing wrong with a Honda Civic either, but I don't drive one. He softened slightly, seeing my expression. Emma, this isn't personal. It's part of the image we're selling. You need to look the part. The part of your trophy wife, the part of someone who belongs in my world. Even if it's temporary, I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him to take his money and his condescension and shove it. But I'd already signed the contracts. Already taken the first step into the cage. Fine, I said tightly. But I'm keeping my diner uniform. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. Fair enough. The next 3 hours were a whirlwind of measurements, fabric swatches, and people talking at me like I was a mannequin instead of a person. The wedding planner, a tiny woman named Patricia with an iPad and an iron will, asked me questions about flowers and centerpieces that I had no answers for. Whatever you think is best, I kept saying, until Dante finally intervened. Patricia, Emma is trusting your expertise. Keep it elegant, simple. No ice sculptures or doves or whatever Instagram trend is happening this week. Of course, Mr. Moretti. Patricia made notes. What about the color scheme? Gold and ivory, he said without hesitation. Next question. He made decisions with the same efficiency he probably used to run his empire. Quick, decisive, final. And somehow, without asking my opinion on any of it, he managed to choose things I actually liked. The personal shopper, Marco, was a different story. Darling, we need to update everything, he declared, circling me like a shark. The hair, the makeup, the wardrobe, all of it. "I like my hair," I protested. "It's lovely, but it's hiding you. We need to show you off." He ran his fingers through my long black hair, pulling it this way and that. Layers. Maybe some subtle highlights to bring out your bone structure. "No. Emma." I said no. "You can style it however you want for events, but you're not cutting it or dyeing it." Marco looked at Dante, clearly expecting backup. Instead, Dante shrugged. "She said no. Move on." The surprise on Marco's face almost made me smile. We spent another hour going through photographs of dresses, shoes, bags. Every time Marco suggested something too revealing or too flashy, I vetoed it, and every time, Dante backed me up. "She needs to look sophisticated, not desperate," he told Marco. "Think old money, not new." By the time everyone left, I was exhausted. I slumped on Dante's office couch, my head spinning with details and decisions and the reality of what I'd committed to. Dante poured 2 glasses of wine and handed me one. "You held your own today. Did I have a choice?" "There's always a choice. You could have let them steamroll you. Most women in your position would have." "Most women in my position aren't being forced into a fake marriage with a crime boss." "Alleged crime boss," he corrected with a slight smile. "And you're not being forced. You agreed. There's a difference." I took a long sip of wine. It was good. Probably expensive. Everything in his world was expensive. "When do I move in?" "Friday. That gives you 3 days to handle your current apartment. Say goodbye to your neighbors. Pack what you want to bring." "What if I don't have anything worth bringing? Then we start fresh." He sat in the chair across from me, close enough that our knees almost touched. "Emma, I know this is overwhelming, but I meant what I said. I honor my agreements. You hold up your end, I'll hold up mine. Your mother gets her treatment, you get your money, and in 2 years, you walk away and never have to see me again. Why does that sound too good to be true?" "Because you're smart enough to know that nothing is ever truly free." He swirled his wine, watching the dark liquid catch the light. "But I promise you this, I won't hurt you. I won't force you into anything beyond what we agreed to, and I'll protect you from anyone who tries." "Why would anyone try to hurt me?" His expression darkened. "Because the moment you become my wife, you become a target. My enemies will see you as leverage. That's why you'll have security. Always. No arguments." Fear prickled down my spine. "What have I gotten myself into? A gilded cage," he said quietly. "But at least it's gilded." Friday came too quickly. I'd spent 3 days in a daze, packing my few belongings, saying goodbye to my apartment building, explaining to my mother that I'd met someone and was moving in with him. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but the joy in her eyes when I told her about the new treatment plan made it worth it. "I'm so happy for you, sweetheart," she'd said, squeezing my hand. "You deserve someone who takes care of you." If only she knew the truth. The moving truck Dante sent was comically large for my possessions. 3 boxes of clothes, some books, a few photos. Everything I owned fit in a corner of the truck bed. When I arrived at the penthouse, there were people everywhere. Interior designers rearranging furniture. A tech team installing new security systems. Staff bringing in racks of clothes. My new wardrobe, delivered while I was gone. And Dante, in the middle of it all, orchestrating chaos with calm efficiency. "Your room is ready," he said when he saw me. "Second door on the left. The master is at the end of the hall." "Where will all these people be living?" I asked, gesturing at the staff. "They don't live here. They're just setting up. By tonight, it'll be just us." Just us. The thought made my stomach flip. He showed me to my room, and I stopped in the doorway, stunned. It was bigger than my entire former apartment. A king-sized bed with silk sheets. A walk-in closet already filled with clothes. A bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. "This is too much," I whispered. "This is the standard. For my wife." He said it matter-of-factly, like he was discussing the weather. "The closet is stocked with basics. Marco will bring more options tomorrow. There's a laptop on the desk if you need to work. The Wi-Fi password is taped to it." I set my 3 pathetic boxes on the floor, suddenly feeling like a child playing dress-up. "Emma." Dante's voice was softer now. I turned to find him watching me with an expression I couldn't read. "This is your home now. I know it doesn't feel like it yet, but it will. Take time to settle in. Rest. We have dinner with my lawyer at 8 to go over the final wedding details. But until then, the penthouse is yours. Where will you be? In my office. I have work. He paused at the door. If you need anything, just ask. There's an intercom system. Press the button by the bed and someone will come. Someone? Who? Staff? Housekeeper, chef, security, take your pick. He left me alone in my gilded prison. I unpacked slowly, hanging my cheap clothes next to designer pieces that cost more than I used to make in a month. I put my mother's photo on the nightstand, arranged my books on the shelf, romance novels and thrillers, worn and dog-eared from multiple readings. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and let myself cry, not because I regretted my choice, but because my old life was gone, packed into 3 boxes and swallowed by this new existence. I was Emma Chen, future wife of Dante Moretti. Trophy, asset, prisoner in silk and gold. A knock on the door made me wipe my eyes quickly. Yes? A woman in her 60s entered, wearing a simple black dress and a kind smile. Miss Chen? I'm Margaret, the housekeeper. Mr. Moretti asked me to check if you needed anything. I'm fine, thank you. I've prepared some tea in the kitchen, and there's lunch if you're hungry. She hesitated. It can be overwhelming, all of this, but it gets easier, you'll see. Have you worked for him long? 10 years. He's a good man, Miss Chen. Complicated, yes. Dangerous to his enemies, certainly, but good to those under his protection. She smiled. And now that includes you. After she left, I wandered to the kitchen and found the tea. Jasmine, my favorite. How did he know? Had he researched that too, along with my bank account and medical bills? I took the tea to the window and looked out over the city. Somewhere down there, my mother was receiving the first round of her new treatment, the experimental drugs that might save her life. Because of the deal I'd made, because I'd sold myself to a man I barely knew. Worth it. I whispered to my reflection. It's worth it. I repeated it until I almost believed it. Dinner with the lawyer was excruciating. Dante's attorney, Robert Sterling, Victoria's father, I realized with a jolt, went through every detail of the wedding ceremony with clinical precision. The guest list, the vows, the photo opportunities for the press. We'll announce the engagement tomorrow, he explained. Just a simple statement. Young love, swept off her feet. That sort of thing. The media will eat it up. What if they dig into my background? I asked. We're prepared for that. Daughter of immigrants, working multiple jobs to support her sick mother, swept off her feet by the city's most eligible bachelor. It's a fairy tale. They'll love it. Dante sat beside me, his hand resting on the back of my chair. Possessive, proprietary, playing the role already. What about Victoria? I asked quietly. Won't she have something to say about this? Robert's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. My daughter understands business arrangements. She'll be fine. Business arrangements, I echoed. Is that what she was too? Emma. Dante's voice held a warning. No, it's a fair question. Robert leaned back in his chair. Victoria and Dante have known each other since childhood. There was an expectation, but expectations change. She'll adapt. I doubted that. I'd seen the way Victoria looked at Dante at the party, like he was hers, bought and paid for. Moving on, Robert continued. The ceremony will be at the Ashford estate. 200 guests. Press will be controlled. Approved photographers only. Emma, you'll need to make a statement to the media. We'll write it for you. I can write my own statement. Both men looked at me in surprise. Can you? Robert's tone was patronizing. I'm not an idiot, I snapped. I can string words together without your help. Emma has a degree in English literature from State, Dante said quietly. She's more than capable. I stared at him. How did he know that? I hadn't mentioned it. Robert cleared his throat. Very well. Draft something and send it to me for approval. We talked for another hour about seating arrangements, menu selections, the honeymoon, a weekend trip to his estate in the Hamptons for appearances, separate rooms, of course. By the time Robert left, my head was pounding. You look exhausted, Dante observed. I am exhausted. This is insane. All of it. Welcome to my world. He poured himself a scotch. Get used to it. This is just the beginning. How do you live like this? Every move calculated, every word measured. Practice. He took a sip, his eyes meeting mine over the rim of the glass. And necessity. In my position, one wrong move can get people killed. The casual way he said it made my blood run cold. I should go to bed, I said, standing. Emma. He caught my wrist as I passed, not hard, just enough to stop me. His hand was warm, his grip gentle despite the strength I could feel there. Thank you. For what? For not running. For going through with this. I know it's not easy. You're paying me $5 million. That makes a lot of things easier. Is that the only reason you're here? The money? I could have said yes. Should have said yes. But something in his eyes made me honest. No, I admitted quietly. It's mostly for my mother. The money is just a bonus. He released my wrist, his fingers trailing against my skin. Get some rest. Tomorrow we announce our engagement to the world. I retreated to my room and closed the door, leaning against it with my heart pounding. This was my life now, playing pretend with a dangerous man, lying to the world, becoming someone I wasn't. I changed into pajamas and climbed into bed, the silk sheets cool against my skin. Through the wall, I could hear Dante moving around in his room. The shower turning on, the quiet sounds of him getting ready for bed. And I wondered, not for the first time, what I'd really agreed to, what price I'd really be paying for my mother's life, and whether, when this was all over, I'd even recognize myself anymore. The announcement went live at 10 a.m. I was at the diner, pouring coffee for the morning regulars, when my phone exploded with notifications. Text messages, social media alerts, missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I ducked into the kitchen and pulled up the news on my phone. The headline made my stomach drop. Moretti heir engaged to mystery woman. There was a photo, one I didn't even remember being taken. Dante and me leaving his building yesterday, his hand at the small of my back, both of us looking like we belonged together. Like we were actually in love. The article was worse. Dante Moretti, CEO of Moretti Enterprises and one of the city's most eligible bachelors, announced his engagement today to Emma Chen, 26. According to sources close to the couple, Moretti was swept off his feet by the hardworking daughter of Chinese immigrants. Chen, who works multiple jobs to support her ailing mother, met Moretti at a charity event last week. The whirlwind romance has culminated in an engagement that friends describe as meant to be. Whirlwind romance. Meant to be. I wanted to laugh or scream or both. Emma! My boss, Rosie, appeared in the doorway, her phone in hand and her eyes wide. Is this true? You're engaged to Dante Moretti? Yes, it happened fast. Fast? Honey, you didn't say a word. When did you even meet him? Last week, at a catering event. Rosie's expression shifted from shock to concern. She'd known me for 3 years, knew about my mother, knew how hard I struggled. Emma, sweetheart, are you sure about this? That man is... There are rumors. I know what people say. I cut her off gently, but he's been good to me. And he's taking care of my mother's medical bills. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Oh, honey. I need to do this, Rosie, for her. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like coffee and cinnamon rolls. Then I'm happy for you. But you be careful, you hear me? And you better still come visit after you're some fancy society wife. I'm not quitting, I said. I'll still work mornings 3 days a week. You're marrying a billionaire and you want to keep slinging hash? She laughed. You're something else, Emma Chen. The rest of my shift was a blur of customers asking questions, congratulations I didn't deserve, and pitying looks from people who'd read between the lines. By the time I left at 2 p.m., I was emotionally drained. A black Mercedes was waiting outside. Not Dante's usual driver, but a younger man with sharp eyes and a holstered gun visible under his jacket. Mrs. Moretti, I mean Miss Chen, he corrected himself. I'm Marcus. Mr. Moretti sent me to take you home. I can take the bus. Mr. Moretti was very clear. You don't take the bus anymore. His tone was respectful but firm. Please, miss. My job depends on getting you home safely. I climbed into the car. feeling the weight of my new reality settle over me like a shroud. When I arrived at the penthouse, Dante was on the phone in his office, speaking rapid Italian. He gestured for me to wait, wrapping up his conversation with curt efficiency. "How was work?" he asked when he hung up. "Surreal." "Everyone knows." That was the point. He moved around his desk and I noticed he looked tired. There were shadows under his eyes, tension in his jaw. The response has been interesting. Meaning? Meaning my associates are surprised. The media is eating it up. And Victoria is furious. "I could have told you that would happen. She'll adjust." He said it with the confidence of someone used to people adjusting to his will. "We have our first public appearance tonight. Dinner at Marcello's. It's a restaurant I own. The press will be there, so we need to sell this." "Sell what exactly?" "That we're in love. That you're not just some arrangement." He stepped closer and my breath caught. "That when I look at you, I see my future wife, not a business transaction." "And how do we do that?" "By touching. Often. Small gestures. My hand on your back, your hand on my arm. Eye contact. Smiling like you enjoy my company." His lips quirked. "I know that last one will require acting." "You're hilarious." "I have my moments." He reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture intimate and possessive, like that. Natural, affectionate. "Can you do that?" My skin tingled where he'd touched me. "I can try." "Good. Wear the black dress. The one Marco brought yesterday. Hair down. The emerald necklace is in your jewelry box." "I have a jewelry box?" "You do now." Marcello's was exactly the kind of restaurant I'd imagined. Dim lighting, white tablecloths, prices that weren't listed on the menu because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. We were seated at a private table near the window, visible but separated from the other diners by a tasteful screen. Dante had been right about the press. Cameras flashed as we entered, photographers shouting questions that Dante ignored with practiced ease. His hand never left the small of my back, warm and steady through the thin fabric of my dress. "Smile," he murmured against my ear as we sat. "You're supposed to be happy." I forced my lips to curve, hoping it looked genuine. The meal was an exercise in performance art. Dante ordered for both of us in flawless Italian, his hand finding mine on the table, thumb stroking across my knuckles. When the wine arrived, he insisted on pouring mine himself. His eyes locked on my face like I was the only person in the room. "You're good at this," I said quietly. "At what?" "Pretending." Something flickered in his expression. "Who says I'm pretending?" Before I could respond, a commotion near the entrance made us both look up. Victoria Sterling swept into the restaurant like an avenging angel in designer heels, her father trailing behind her looking apologetic and furious in equal measure. "Dante," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "We need to talk." Every eye in the restaurant turned toward us. Dante's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. "Victoria, this isn't the time, isn't it?" She stopped at our table, her blue eyes blazing. "You're really going through with this farce? Marrying some nobody?" "Watch your tone," Dante said softly. But there was steel underneath. He stood, positioning himself slightly between Victoria and me. "Emma is my fiancée. You will treat her with respect." "Respect?" Victoria laughed, the sound brittle. "She's a waitress you're using to clean up your image. Everyone knows it." I should have stayed quiet, should have let Dante handle it, but the same anger that had made me call him spoiled surged up again. "If I'm such a nobody," I said, standing to face her, "why are you so threatened?" Her perfectly made-up face flushed. "I'm not threatened by you." Could have fooled me. I kept my voice level, channeling every ounce of dignity I had. But then again, I'm just a waitress. What do I know? Victoria's hand twitched like she wanted to slap me. Dante moved faster, catching her wrist mid-swing. "Enough." His voice was quiet but absolute. "Robert, take your daughter home. Now." "Victoria, please." Robert Sterling stepped forward, his face pale. "This isn't—" "Don't you dare!" Victoria hissed at me, jerking her arm from Dante's grip. "Don't you dare think this is real. He's using you. And when he's done, you'll be right back in your diner, and I'll still be here." She stormed out, her father rushing after her with mumbled apologies. The restaurant was silent. Every phone in the place was probably filming. This would be all over social media in minutes. Dante's hand found mine, squeezing gently. "Sit," he said quietly. "Don't let her see she got to you." I sat, my legs shaking. He sat beside me instead of across, angling his body toward mine, creating a bubble of intimacy despite the dozens of watching eyes. "I'm sorry," he said, low enough that only I could hear. "I should have anticipated that. She's in love with you. She's in love with the idea of me, of what our families expected." He signaled the waiter, who appeared instantly. "We're ready for the check." "But we haven't eaten. We're leaving, now." His tone brooked no argument. In the car, the privacy screen up, Dante's composure finally cracked. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "That was a disaster. Will there be consequences? For you, I mean? Robert will smooth things over. Victoria's just... She doesn't handle change well. She called me a nobody. You're not." He turned to face me in the dim interior. "You held your own tonight. Most people fold when Victoria goes on the attack. I've dealt with worse than rich girls having tantrums." "I don't doubt it." His eyes searched my face. "Are you okay?" The question surprised me. Why wouldn't I be? Because this is harder than it should be. The scrutiny, the attacks. I brought you into this. Into my mess. I knew what I was signing up for. Did you? He reached up, and I thought he was going to touch my face, but he stopped just short, his hand hovering in the space between us. I'm not sure I did. The moment stretched, charged with something I couldn't name. Then his phone buzzed, and the spell broke. He checked the message and cursed under his breath. "I need to handle something. Marcus will take you home. What about you?" "I have a meeting. Don't wait up." He was already typing a response, his attention shifting to business. The vulnerable man from seconds ago disappeared behind the CEO mask. When we arrived at the penthouse, he didn't get out. Just caught my hand before I could leave. "Emma?" He waited until I looked at him. "What Victoria said about me using you. Isn't that exactly what you're doing?" His thumb brushed across my knuckles, maybe at first. "But you're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone easier, softer, more pliable." A slight smile. "You're none of those things. Sorry to disappoint. You haven't." He released my hand. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we have dress fittings." I climbed out of the car and watched it pull away, my hand still tingling where he'd touched it. Upstairs, the penthouse felt too big, too quiet. Margaret had left dinner in the kitchen, some pasta dish that probably had a fancy Italian name I couldn't pronounce. I ate mechanically, staring at my phone as the internet dissected my encounter with Victoria. Moretti engagement was trending. People were taking sides, some defending me as the real woman who'd captured Dante's heart, others calling me a gold digger who'd trapped him. Victoria's fans were vicious, but so were Dante's. I turned off my phone and went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. Instead, I lay in the dark, listening to Dante return hours later, his footsteps in the hallway, the sound of his door closing, the shower running, and I wondered what kind of meeting required him to shower afterward. Wondered what kind of man I'd really agreed to marry. Wondered if I was in over my head or exactly where I needed to be. The next 2 weeks were a blur of fittings, appointments, and carefully staged public appearances. Dante and I fell into a routine. Breakfast together before he left for the office, dinners when his schedule allowed, careful performances whenever cameras were present. And somewhere in the performance, something started to shift. He remembered that I took my coffee black with 1 sugar. Started buying jasmine tea in bulk because I mentioned liking it. Noticed when I was tired and sent me to bed early instead of dragging me to another event. Small things. Insignificant, probably, but they added up. One night, a week before the wedding, I found him in his study at 2 a.m., papers spread across his desk, a glass of scotch in hand. "Can't sleep?" I asked from the doorway. He looked up, surprised. "Did I wake you?" "No, I was reading." I gestured to the book in my hand, one of my dog-eared romances. "What are you working on?" "Details for a new development. Nothing interesting." But he looked exhausted, the shadows under his eyes deeper than usual. I crossed to his desk and picked up the scotch. "How much of this have you had?" "Enough." "That's not an answer." I set the glass out of reach. "When's the last time you slept through the night?" "I don't remember." He leaned back in his chair, studying me with those dark eyes. "Why are you awake, really? Nervous about the wedding? It's just a performance, like everything else." "Is it?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. His expression shifted, guarded, curious. "What do you mean?" "Sometimes it feels real. The way you—" I trailed off, unsure how to finish. "The way I what?" "Look at me. Touch me. Like this isn't just business." Silence fell between us, heavy with things unsaid. "Emma." His voice was rough. "You should go to bed." "Why?" "Because if you stay, I'm going to say things I shouldn't." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Like what?" He stood abruptly, moving around the desk until he was close enough that I could smell the scotch on his breath, the sandalwood of his cologne, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "Like the fact that this stopped being just business the moment you called me spoiled," he said quietly. "Like the fact that I think about you constantly. Wonder what you're doing. Whether you're happy, whether—" He stopped himself. "Go to bed, Emma." "What if I don't want to?" "Then we're both in trouble." The air between us crackled with tension. I should have left. Should have put distance between us. This was a contract, an arrangement, nothing more, but I didn't move. Neither did he. Dante. Whatever I was going to say was cut off by his phone ringing, shrill in the quiet. He cursed and answered it, his expression darkening as he listened. "When?" A pause. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at me, regret clear in his eyes. "I have to go." "At 2 a.m.? Business doesn't keep regular hours." He grabbed his jacket. "I'll have security stay at the penthouse tonight. Don't leave without Marcus." "Is everything okay?" "It will be." He paused at the door, looking back. "Emma, what we were just talking about, I know. Forget it. It's late. We're both tired." But as he left, I knew neither of us would forget. And I knew that somewhere between the contract signing and now, this had become more than just a business arrangement. At least for me. I wasn't sure what that meant, or what I was going to do about it. Bloco 5, Final. The wedding day arrived wrapped in golden sunshine and my growing dread. I stood in the bridal suite at the Ashford estate, staring at my reflection in the full-length mirror. The dress was stunning, ivory silk that flowed like water, delicate lace sleeves, a train that pooled behind me like spilled moonlight. My hair was arranged in soft waves, pinned with vintage pearl clips. The emerald necklace Dante had given me glinted at my throat. I looked like a bride. I felt like a fraud. "You're beautiful, sweetheart," my mother said from her wheelchair, tears streaming down her face. The treatment was working. She had color in her cheeks again, strength in her voice. She'd been well enough to attend, which was all I'd wanted. He's a lucky man. If only she knew the truth. "Thanks, Mom." I knelt beside her carefully, mindful of the dress. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm watching my daughter marry a good man." She cupped my face with trembling hands. "I know you did this for me, Emma. The medical bills, the treatment." "I'm not stupid." My heart stopped. "Mom." "But I also see the way he looks at you." She smiled through her tears. "Like you're the only person in the room. That's not fake, baby. That's real." Before I could respond, there was a knock. Patricia entered, her iPad clutched like a lifeline. "5 minutes, Emma. Are you ready?" "No." "Yes." My mother was wheeled out to take her place, leaving me alone with my reflection and my racing thoughts. In the past 2 weeks, Dante and I had circled each other like wary cats, close enough to feel the heat, careful not to touch. After that night in his study, he'd pulled back, become professional again, but I'd catch him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. This was supposed to be simple, a contract. 2 years of performance, then freedom. But nothing about Dante Moretti was simple. The music changed. My cue. I took a breath, lifted my chin, and stepped into the hallway where my escort waited. Robert Sterling, of all people, offered his arm with a tight smile. Victoria sends her regrets, he said quietly as we walked. She's indisposed. I bet she is. For what it's worth, Emma, I think you're good for him. Dante's been different these past weeks. Lighter, somehow. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. The double doors opened, and 200 faces turned toward me. But I only saw one. Dante stood at the altar in a charcoal suit, his dark hair perfect, his expression unreadable. But when our eyes met, something shifted. His mask cracked just for a second, and what I saw underneath made my knees weak. Hunger, possessiveness, and something that looked terrifyingly like real emotion. I walked down the aisle on autopilot, hyper-aware of the cameras, the whispers, the weight of so many watching eyes. When I reached the altar, Robert placed my hand in Dante's. His fingers closed around mine, warm, steady, real. "You look beautiful," he murmured, low enough that only I could hear. "You clean up okay yourself." That dangerous smile flickered across his face. The ceremony was a blur. I recited vows I'd memorized but didn't mean. Promises of love and devotion and forever. Dante's voice was steady, his responses perfectly delivered. The performance was flawless. Until the moment the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride." Dante's hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. "Last chance to run," he whispered. "Too late now." "Yes," he agreed. "It is." Then he kissed me. It was supposed to be simple. A brief press of lips for the cameras, but the moment his mouth touched mine, something ignited. His other hand found my waist, pulling me closer. My fingers curled into his jacket. The kiss deepened, became something real and raw, and entirely inappropriate for a church. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the crowd erupted in applause, but all I could see was the look in Dante's eyes. No mask, no performance, just pure, unfiltered want. "Mrs. Moretti," he said, and the name sounded like a promise and a threat, all at once. The reception was held in the estate's grand ballroom, all crystal and gold, hundreds of guests in designer clothes, champagne flowing like water. Dante and I moved through the crowd like we'd been doing this our whole lives, his hand never leaving the small of my back, my smile never faltering. We danced for the cameras, his arms around me, his breath warm against my ear. "You're doing well," he said. "So are you." "Oscar-worthy performance. Is that what you think this is?" I looked up at him, searching his face. "Isn't it?" Before he could answer, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. The music stopped. Conversations died. A man entered. Tall, silver-haired, in an expensive suit that screamed old money, but it was the menace that rolled off him in waves that made my skin crawl. He was flanked by 4 men who looked like they ate nails for breakfast. Dante's entire body went rigid, his hand on my waist tightened almost painfully. "Marco Santini," he said quietly, and I heard the barely controlled rage in his voice. "Who?" "My father's old partner, my enemy." He released me, stepping forward. "Stay here," but I grabbed his arm. "Dante?" "Emma." He looked at me, and his eyes were cold, empty. The man I'd started to know vanished, replaced by someone dangerous. "Stay. Here." He crossed the ballroom, his men materializing from the shadows to flank him. The 2 groups met in the center of the dance floor like armies facing off. "Moretti," Santini said, his voice carrying through the silent room. "Congratulations on your wedding. I wasn't invited, but I came anyway." "You're not welcome here." Dante's voice was flat, controlled. "No? But we have so much to discuss, like the territory dispute on the waterfront, or the shipment that went missing last week, or—" His eyes found me, and his smile was predatory. "Your beautiful new bride." Ice flooded my veins. "Touch her and I'll kill you," Dante said simply. Santini laughed. "Such passion. But you see, Dante, marriage makes you weak, gives you something to lose, something I can take away." Everything happened at once. Santini's men moved. So did Dante's. Guests screamed, scrambling for the exits. I heard the unmistakable sound of guns being drawn. Then Dante was there, grabbing my hand, pulling me toward a side exit. Run! We burst through doors, down a corridor, his security surrounding us. Behind us, shouts, gunfire, chaos. What's happening? I gasped. He came to send a message, that I'm vulnerable now, that he can get to me through you. We reached a secure room, reinforced walls, no windows. Dante shoved me inside, his men taking positions outside. Lock the door, he ordered. Don't open it for anyone but me. Where are you going? To end this. His eyes were black, empty of everything except cold fury. Stay here, Emma, I mean it. He turned to leave, but I caught his jacket. Dante, wait. I can't. He pulled away. If I don't handle this now, they'll never stop coming. Never stop trying to use you against me, then let them. It's not worth dying over. Something flickered in his expression. You're wrong. You are worth dying over. Before I could process that, he was gone. I locked the door with shaking hands and sank to the floor in my wedding dress, listening to muffled shouts and the distant crack of gunfire. This was my life now. Violence and danger, and a husband who'd just admitted I was worth dying for. A husband I'd started to care about more than I should. Minutes felt like hours. I counted my heartbeats, my breaths, anything to keep from losing my mind. Finally, there was a knock. Emma. Dante's voice, rough and tired. It's me. Open up. I scrambled to unlock the door. He stood there, his suit jacket gone, his white shirt splattered with blood, but he was standing, alive. Are you hurt? I grabbed his arms, searching for wounds. Not my blood. He stepped inside, closing the door. It's over. Santini's men are gone. He won't be a problem anymore. What does that mean? It means I handled it. His voice was flat, empty. I stared at this man I'd married, this stranger with blood on his shirt and death in his eyes, and I should have been terrified, should have run screaming. Instead, I reached up and touched his face. He flinched like I'd burned him. Emma, don't what? Don't touch you? Don't care that you almost got killed? My voice broke. Don't fall for you? The words hung between us like a confession. His hands came up to grip my wrists, but he didn't push me away. You can't. It's not real. Isn't it? I stepped closer. When did it stop being fake, Dante? When you started remembering how I take my coffee? When you looked at me during the ceremony like I was the only person in the world? When you said I was worth dying for? I shouldn't have said that, but you did. I pulled one hand free and placed it over his heart. It was racing. Tell me this is still just business. Tell me you don't feel anything and I'll believe you. He stared at me for a long moment, war raging behind his eyes. Then he broke. His mouth crashed into mine, hungry and desperate and real. His hands cupped my face, then slid into my hair, destroying the careful arrangement. I grabbed his shirt, pulling him closer, tasting scotch and danger and something indefinably him. We stumbled backward until I hit the wall, his body pressing against mine, one hand braced beside my head. The kiss was nothing like the one at the altar. This was raw, honest, everything we'd been holding back. This is a mistake, he breathed against my lips, probably. You should run from me, from this life. Too late. I kissed him again. I already signed the contract. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his eyes searching mine. Emma, if we do this, if we make this real, there's no going back. My world is dangerous. My enemies won't care that you're innocent. They'll use you against me. They already tried tonight, and it will happen again. Can you live with that? I thought about my mother, safe and healing because of him. Thought about the past weeks, watching him be ruthless in business but gentle with me. Thought about the man behind the mask, the one who remembered my coffee order and bought jasmine tea. Can you live with letting me go? I countered. Something cracked in his expression, the last of his control shattering. No. God help me. No. Then stop trying to push me away. He kissed me again, softer this time, and it felt like a promise, like choosing each other despite everything screaming at us not to. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. This changes everything, he said quietly. I know. 2 years won't be enough. My heart stuttered. What? I don't want a temporary wife, Emma. I want— He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. I really want you. No contract, no timeline. Just us. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're stubborn and brave and you fight back when anyone else would cower. I know you work yourself to exhaustion for people you love. I know you see me, the real me, and you're not afraid. His thumb brushed my cheek. I know that somewhere between hating me and tolerating me, you started to care. And I know I've been falling for you since the moment you called me spoiled. Tears burned behind my eyes. This is insane. Most good things are. He pulled back slightly. But I need you to understand what you're agreeing to. This won't be easy. My life is complicated, dangerous. There will be threats, attacks, things I can't protect you from. Then teach me to protect myself. Surprise flickered across his face. What? If I'm going to be your wife, your real wife, then I can't be helpless. Teach me. How to handle threats. How to navigate your world. How to be strong enough to stand beside you instead of behind you. A slow smile spread across his face. The first real smile I'd seen from him. You continue to surprise me. Good. I'd hate to be boring. He kissed me again, gentler, and it tasted like new beginnings. 3 months later, I stood in Dante's office, our office now, reviewing contracts for the new shelter we were opening. The Moretti Foundation, dedicated to helping families afford medical care. My idea, his money, our project together. Mrs. Moretti, Margaret knocked on the open door. Your mother is here. Send her in. My mother entered, walking on her own now, the cancer in remission. She looked healthy, vibrant, years younger than she had in that hospital bed. Emma, darling, she hugged me tight. I can't stay long. I have that volunteer shift at the shelter. But I wanted to drop these off. She handed me a box of her famous almond cookies, and the familiar scent made me smile. You didn't have to. I wanted to. For you and Dante. She glanced around the office. Speaking of, where is your husband? Meeting with contractors. He'll be back soon. Good. I want to thank him again for everything he's done. She squeezed my hand. I was wrong, you know. At the wedding, when I said you did this for me. Mom. You did at first, but somewhere along the way, it became real. I can see it in your eyes when you look at him. And the way he looks at you, she smiled. Like you hung the moon, heat crept up my neck. It's complicated. Love usually is. She kissed my cheek. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. You found your steel spine and used it to build something beautiful. After she left, I stood at the window, looking out over the city. From up here, everything looked small, manageable. But I knew better now. Knew that danger lurked in shadows, that enemies plotted, that the price of loving Dante Moretti was constant vigilance. But I also knew it was worth it. Arms wrapped around me from behind, and I leaned back against Dante's chest. How was the meeting? I asked. Productive. The waterfront development is approved. He pressed a kiss to my temple. How's your mother? Good. Happy. She brought cookies. She always brings cookies. I could hear the smile in his voice. I think she's trying to fatten me up. Is it working? Maybe. He turned me in his arms, his dark eyes soft as they met mine. I have something for you. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, not the massive diamond I wore for show, but something simpler, a thin gold band with a single emerald. What's this? The engagement ring I would have given you if we'd done this the right way. If I'd courted you properly, earned your trust, asked you to marry me because we loved each other. Not because of a contract. Tears blurred my vision. Dante, I know we can't redo the past. Can't change how this started, but I want you to have this anyway, as a promise that every day going forward, I choose you. Not because of a contract or an arrangement, but because I love you. The words hit me like a physical force. He'd never said them before, not like this. I love you too, I whispered. You infuriating, dangerous, impossible man. He slid the ring onto my finger, next to the wedding band. Still think I'm spoiled? Absolutely. I stood on my toes to kiss him, and you still think I'm stubborn, without question. He kissed me back, deep and slow. But you're my stubborn waitress who calls me a thug. And you're my spoiled mafia boss who swept me off my feet. We stood there, wrapped in each other, the city sprawling below us. Two people who'd started as strangers, bound by a contract, who'd found something real in the performance. I thought about the terrified girl who'd spilled wine on a dangerous man's suit, who'd agreed to marry him to save her mother, who'd been so sure she could keep her heart locked away. That girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd learned to be strong, to fight, to love despite the danger, a woman who'd found her home in the arms of a man everyone warned her away from. No regrets? Dante asked quietly. I looked at the ring on my finger, at the man who'd given it to me, at the life we were building together. Not a single one. He kissed me again, and through the window I could see our reflection. Two people intertwined, inseparable, real. The contract that brought us together was long forgotten, replaced by something infinitely more binding. Love, choice, forever. And if that made me foolish, then I'd happily be a fool for the rest of my life. Because some cages, I'd learned, were worth staying in. Especially when they were gilded with love, built on trust, and opened from the inside. This was my life now. My choice, my love, and I wouldn't change a single thing.